Coming up on today's Philadelphia Eagles, now the Birds, 8-1 record going into the bye week. And I've evaluated this team every single week. So going into the bye, I came up with some bye week changes I want to see the Eagles make. And with that, you take a look at the NFC playoff picture to see how the Eagles are sitting right now in the NFC going into the bye and what type of changes they have to make working off of this. Philadelphia, league best record at 8-1, number 1 seed in the NFC. And right now, this playoff picture is very fascinating at about the halfway pull of the regular season. You have the Eagles there in that number 1 position, the Detroit Lions, upstart organization under Dan Campbell at 6-2. San Francisco 49ers, they've lost 3 consecutive games, and with that, they're the 3 seed in the NFC. The New Orleans Saints at 5-4, leaders of what is a very lackluster division in the NFC South. And then after that, Seahawks in that 5th position at 5-3, the Cowboys 6th seed at 5-3, and the Minnesota Vikings on a 4-game tear right now without Kirk Cousins. Josh Dobbs now going to be the starter moving forward. A heroic effort from him last week to lead a comeback win over Atlanta after the Vikings traded for him leading up to the NFL trade deadline. They're at 5-4, and then the other teams in the hunt, you have Washington and Atlanta at 4-5, and then the Bucs and Green Bay Packers at 3-5 there. You look at some of the matchups that would take place if the season were to end right now. Eagles would get that bye week, allowing them to recharge and get a little bit healthier. How about Niners and Cowboys in the wild card round? That could get crazy for sure. And the Eagles' upcoming schedule coming out of the bye week. This allows us to kind of set the foundation for some of the bye week changes that I want to see this coaching staff make. Super Bowl 57 rematch on the road, Arrowhead Stadium against the Kansas City Chiefs on the 20th of November. That'll be a Monday night football game. We'll be back for another watch party, so make sure you subscribe. Then the Eagles come back home to take on the Buffalo Bills. Going to be rocking the Kelly Green jerseys there. Eagles-Niners rematch of the NFC Championship game. Much awaited test on the 3rd of December to kind of kick off that month. And then on the 10th of December, Eagles-Cowboys in Arlington, Sunday night football. And then another really difficult road game here. Eagles in the Pacific Northwest against the Seattle Seahawks. This 5-game stretch here going to be arduous for this football team. But they come out of it 3-2, still sitting really pretty because at the end of the year, 2 of the last 3 weeks, they take on the Giants with the Arizona Cardinals sandwiched in between. So the bye week changes, and some of the things that I want to see going into this bye and coming out of it, number 1, you got to get quarterback Jalen Hurts healthy. He's been hobbled for a while with the knee injury, re-aggravated it against the Dallas Cowboys. He was in a lot of pain, and for about 15, 20 seconds, the whole city of Philadelphia and Eagles fans everywhere, we were very worried after he took that helmet to the knee. I think there's a blessing in disguise here, though, with Jalen Hurts being hurt because he hasn't run it as much. And because of that, Hurts has had to win from the pocket, and he has flourished. He has been successful in growing and developing as a pocket passer. Hurts at the bye week through 9 games, he's completing nearly 69% of his passes. He's thrown for 15 touchdowns, 8 picks, 97 rating, 88 rushing attempts for 316 yards, and then 7 touchdowns. So he's combined here for 22 touchdowns and 8 picks. That's not bad. And what's crazy is that with this tear that Hurts has been on from 2022 going into this year, and the development that we've seen taking place, you stack up Hurts' numbers from the start of 2022 all the way through this year, and you compare those numbers with Patrick Mahomes, these are very even players here. Passer rating for Mahomes, 102.3. Hurts, 99.7. Passing and rushing touchdowns, Mahomes was 62. Hurts, behind him, 5 less with 57. Completion percentage, very close here. Mahomes at 67.6. Hurts at 67.5. Interceptions, Mahomes has thrown more with 20. Of course, more passing attempts to Hurts' 14. Total turnovers, Mahomes also has more. 22-18. While Mahomes airs it out more, Hurts runs it more, so the ball is in his hands a lot. Yards per attempt, Hurts actually averaging more, 7.9 to Mahomes' 7.8. Passing and rushing yards per game, Mahomes at 320, Hurts at 296. And the record here, this is very important. A lot of people don't think that wins are a quarterback stat. I think the quarterback sets the tone for the rest of your organization. Mahomes has been 21-5 since the start of 2022. Jalen Hurts, 22-2 in the regular season. And Jalen Hurts, just the leader that you want in your football team. So cool, calm, and collected, plays great from behind as he's done all throughout this year, embarking on a couple of epic comebacks for this football team. And when he says something like this is so Philadelphia that it hurts. He said after that Cowboys game, when asked about that knee injury, for this team, for this city, I will do anything. Inject it into my veins right now. Change number 2 for this Eagles team during the bye week. You got to get the run game back on track. It's great that Hurts is dotting balls left and right at all 3 levels of the field, from sideline to sideline. But this Eagles ground game has been non-existent for about a month and change here. And you look at some of the splits for this Eagles rushing attack, weeks 1 through 4. Remember when DeAndre Swift, after not getting utilized week 1 against the Patriots, what a crime, went on that tear? Eagles as a team, 140 carries in weeks 1 through 4, 661 yards, average yards per carry at 4.7 with 5 rushing touchdowns. Cam Jurgens goes out, and in weeks 5 through 9, this rushing attack has really vanished. 150 carries, so more of a workload here, but down in yards from 661 to 506. Yards per carry is down by 1.3 yards from 4.7 to 3.4. Touchdowns go up, but that number is misleading because of how successful the Eagles are with running the best play in football, the brotherly shove. If you hate it, suck it. So will Cam Jurgens' return help this ground game find its groove? You would hope so. And you would imagine that Jurgens, coming off that foot injury, is going to come back against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium on Monday Night Football. I just think that, yes, it's great that in a passing league, Hurts is making monumental strides and chucking the rock, but the more diverse that you are as an offense, the harder that you are to stop. And as we get closer to December, January, hopefully February for this team, you're going to be going up against some really stout defenses. They're going to offer and show you different styles of defenses. Some of the defensive coordinators will mix up their looks. The weather also changes, though. So why I like the Eagles and why I think that they're the best team in football, they're more multiple than any team. They can win in a pass-happy shootout. They can win in a defensive slugfest. They can win in running the football, but in order to win running the football, they just have to be a little bit better in that regard. Coming up next here on the show, maybe this is the biggest change that we need to see from this Eagles team and my biggest concern that could hold them back from ultimately lifting up the Lombardi Trophy. That's fixing the secondary, because the Eagles secondary has been one of the worst in the NFL. More on that in a moment, but this is our poll question for today's show. What is one change that you would implement for the Philadelphia Eagles going into the bye week? I want you to show off your football knowledge and your football intellect with me down in the comment section. Today's show, sponsored by Prize Picks. Get a $100 deposit match at prizepicks.com/CLNS. Even though the Birds are on a bye, producer Chip and I, we're going to continue to make our picks with Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy, and this is the only app that you should be using if you're into DFS. It's also the largest independently run daily fantasy sports app in North America. You pick 2+ players. You choose more or less on their projected stat lines. You can win up to 25 times your money, and some celebrities are also in on Prize Picks. Not just me and producer Chip, Meek Mill in on it as well. Philadelphia legend, Dreams and Nightmares, what up? The picks that I like going into this week. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is going to be able to have success against that Niners defense through the air. 248.5 passing yards. Give me the more. Dak Prescott against the Giants, a team that they dispatched in week 1, 40-0, more than 243.5 yards. Look, I don't like Dak, but he did play well against this Eagles team. I think that continues. And Christian McCaffrey had some time to rest up during the bye week for San Francisco. He's still the leading rusher in the National Football League. I like more than 71.5 rushing yards. So again, a $100 deposit match only if you use our link down below. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS. All of that information is available for you in the comment section and in the description of this video. So going back to that point that I made about fixing this Eagles secondary, they've been leaky on the back end. They've been exposed on the back end, especially the last 2 weeks. Eagles couldn't really get a stop until late against Sam Howell and Dak Prescott. And you look at the discrepancy here with how this Eagles defense fares against the pass and how they're faring against the run. Pass yards per game, the Eagles are giving up 257 per contest. That is 29 of 32 in the NFL right now. Passing touchdowns allowed, tied for 31st in the NFL, with 19 passing touchdowns surrendered this year for this Eagles defense. If they can shore that up, they're already really good against the run because of how good they are along that defensive front and how they can manhandle opposing offensive lines. The Eagles defense, number 1 in rushing yards allowed this year at 66.3. That's an elite figure. And then rushing touchdowns allowed, only 3 the entirety of this year through 9 games. That is tied for second in the NFL. And this is a dangerous way to play because the last 2 weeks we've seen this end up ringing true, where the Eagles were getting carved up by Sam Howell, couldn't get off the field on 3rd and 4th downs, couldn't really get a stop in the red zone. Then Dak Prescott was having a day from the pocket, but also extending plays out of structure. The Eagles right now are kind of pass rush, sack or bust reliant, and this burned them in the Super Bowl last year. The Sodfather had something to do with it potentially in Glendale, Arizona, but the Eagles could not get a sack against Patrick Mahomes. And what happened after recess? The only incompletion that he threw was on a throwaway because that secondary struggled. This is the one thing that could hold the Eagles back from winning a Super Bowl and bringing that second Lombardi trophy to Philadelphia, and I need a parade like I need air. The return of Bradley Roby could help this Eagles secondary, right? He's been out the last few games with that pec injury, made his debut against the Los Angeles Rams. I thought he played well considering who he had to cover and the assignments that he was given, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I think this will help the Eagles in the slot because last week they got cooked by C.D. Lamb. Sean Desai literally tried everybody against C.D. Lamb. It didn't work. No options worked. Look at these numbers from Jeff McClain, right? Eagles defense struggling to cover C.D. Lamb in the slot with a variety of players. Overall, they allowed a combined 13 of 15 completions to passing attempts for 206 yards and a touchdown. Eli Ricks, 32 snaps, allowed 4 of 4 passes for 72 yards. Kevin Byard, 15 snaps, 3 of 3 for 71 yards. Sidney Brown, maybe a little bit too slow, late to react in the slot, better as a safety, 13 snaps, 4 of 4 when targeted, 50 yards and a touchdown. Reed Blankenship, 8 snaps, 1 of 2 for no touchdowns. And then Darius Slay went up to Sean Desai late in that game and said, if Lamb is in the slot, I want him. He defended him. He fared very, very well, 1 of 2 for just 13 yards. So Bradley Roby expected to return after the bye week. He even confirmed that news on Twitter. And when he does come back, bolsters your depth with Eli Ricks being utilized more as a depth piece. But just because he's been in the league for a long time and you already have Darius Slay, James Bradbury on the outside, it could help this defense a lot. Another point of emphasis here. I think Philadelphia, especially with Dallas Goedert being out, has to get Devonta Smith going. The injury to Goddard could allow Smitty to kind of break out and elevate his game. What a dime that Jalen Hurts dropped in the bucket to Smitty against the Cowboys on Sunday. Toe drag swag right along the sideline there. In the 5 games that Goddard missed in 2022, the Eagles tight ends totaled 14 catches for 143 yards and a touchdown. Their per game average, 2.8 catches for just 28.6 yards. A positive spin on that, with Goddard being out, is that when he was missing those 5 games with that shoulder injury, Devonta Smith played great. He averaged 5 receptions per game for 84 yards and scored 2 touchdowns during that span. And it's pretty crazy because A.J. Brown is having a career year. He already surpassed 1,000 receiving yards in 9 games already. And he has become the number one option for Jalen Hurts with this passing attack. And because of that, Devonta Smith has taken a little bit of a step back, but he's still having a pretty damn good season, right? 42 catches, 533 yards, 4 touchdowns, a long of 63. You get him going, A.J. Brown going, and this ground game going. Those are the changes that makes this Eagles team really dangerous during the meat of their 2023 schedule. This is, I think, a little bit of an underrated storyline heading into the bye. With Goddard out, unleash Albert Okwuegbunam. I think that Albert O has all of the talent in the world. He is an atrocious blocker, but he could be a secret offensive weapon on this team to aid this passing attack. And the gifts that he has with his size, athleticism, jumping ability to pick up yards after the catch, he is a great developmental player for this Eagles organization. In his first 3 years since getting drafted out of Mizzou, where he played his college ball with Drew Lock, where he was one of the better players in the SEC, he has shown a lot of ability. A torn ACL early in his career kind of curtailed things a little bit, and then he slid down the depth chart under Nathaniel Hackett, and then Sean Payton came in and didn't envision a role for him. But year 1, 11 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. He got a little bit more time in 2021, 33 catches for 330 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then in 2022 was a healthy scratch for a majority of games, only 10 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. But he's by far and away the most talented tight end on this roster when you stack his ability up with Grant Calcaterra as well as Jack Stoll. And this Eagles offense over the last few years has done such a good job of maximizing players offensively and defensively. Albert O could be next up. If you enjoyed today's show, thought we brought you some good analysis, give me a real one down below because we appreciate you for supporting the program. And don't forget to subscribe.